Welcome back to Board Now, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast hosted by me, the final girl. And you guys, I am so excited to talk about today's episode. It is one of my favorites in season 1, but it's also one of my favorites in the entire series. It's Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. We get my favorite quote of all time in this episode. We also see why Buffy continues to struggle with that duality of her life. You know, she just wants to be a normal girl. And even when she has a moment like that outside of the Hellmouth or the people in her little circle, he then becomes an adrenaline junkie. I am so excited to get into this with you guys. I have actually deep dived this before on my TikTok in my one of my most underrated episodes series. There I had done a bunch of Buffy episodes that were super underrated, and this one was one of them because we don't really talk a whole lot about it in the fandom. So let's totally dive in. I've got my notes and I'm ready to go.
In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer.
Buffy's trying to balance slaying and social life, and tonight she just wants a normal date with Owen. But of course, the Hellmouth has other plans. A prophecy must be fulfilled, Buffy can be beeped, and in the end, she realizes she's not into adrenaline junkies. It's a classic tug of war between duty and desire. We open on Buffy and Giles in the graveyard, and she's dusting that vampire, and he is critiquing her and her performance. And what I love is that it's showing their ever-evolving relationship. He's trying so hard to be a good watcher, and she is consistently pushing the bounds. She doesn't toe the line. And to me, watching this as a kid, I feel like it kind of taught me to stand up for myself. And not really just with the kids and the bullies that I was going through, also with the adult and authority figures in my life. I was heavily picked on, not just by the students, but also by the teachers at my school. It was a real issue. My parents even tried to take it to the superintendent. It was a whole thing. But seeing Buffy not stand down to Giles and other adult authority figures showed me that just because I had a voice didn't mean it didn't matter. That age wasn't a thing. I still should have been respected. It kind of helped shaped me. And while I didn't talk back to my teachers or those authority figures, I wasn't scared of them. And I most certainly didn't stand down. I mean, there was one time that my principal pulled me into the office, and I don't even really remember what the situation was over, but it was because me and another girl had gotten into it. And again, they were bullying and picking on me. I just was so over it and so fed up. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm not even gonna acknowledge this anymore. My mom is gonna handle this. She's gonna take care of it. And I'm not dealing with these teachers. I'm not dealing with these students. I'm not dealing with any of this. And my principal was like, no, Miss Troxel, you have to be a grown-up now. It's time to put on your big girl panties. I think it was 13 years old. And she's like, you're 13 years old now. Your mommy can't handle everything. And I was like, well, you're going to get my mom on the phone now. I am not going to say anything else. I'm not going to handle this. My mother is going to have the conversation with you. And she kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I just said to her, I said, get my mom on the fucking phone now. And sure enough, she called my mom. And my mom, being who she is, was like, what are you doing? Why are you bothering me? What's going on? Put my daughter on the phone. And so I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I said, she wouldn't let me call you and talk to you about everything that's going on right now. And my mom said, give the phone to her. And so she put the phone back to my mom, and she put it on the speakerphone. And she said, don't you ever fucking not let my daughter call me again. Do you understand? And she rambled on, and she was like, I'm already on my way up there. The fact that you're taking me out of my day, ripped this principal a new one. And I just kind of sat there, and in my head, it was like, this is so Joyce Summers. But I think a lot of that and that standing up for myself was very shaped to me, not just by my mom, who also instilled a lot of that in me, but also was Buffy Summers. And I think honestly, that's why I respect the younger generations so much, like Gen Z and even Gen Alpha is going to be coming up. I really respect their voice and really like, always wanna acknowledge them anytime I'm having conversations with them and acknowledge who they are, because just because you are so young doesn't mean that you aren't wise or have certain experiences. Yes, obviously, I'm older and I have lived more and I know more now, obviously, that I'm older than a 13-year-old kid would, but I, at the time, was going through more than the average 13-year-old kid, and I look at Buffy's story, and she's going through more than the average 16-year-old. And I think there's a lot of nuance there. And I think that, we as the adults and the elders need to recognize that when we are speaking to the younger generation, that we are shaping them. And so to me, when you show them respect, they tend to show you more respect. Giles is concerned when the vamp that Buffy Dust leaves behind this ancient looking ring. And we cut to the master talking about the anointed one.
And there will be a time of crisis, of worlds hanging in the balance. And in this time shall come the anointed, the master's great warrior. And the slayer will not know him, will not stop him, and he will lead her into hell.
And we talk a lot about this first season being very monster of the week, but here in this episode 5, we are starting a story arc. We're starting this underlining plot that's about to happen. This episode sets up Buffy's prophecy that ends up getting revealed in the final episode of the season. As Giles and Buffy are investigating the Order of Aurelius, we meet Owen, and he's a sweet, brooding, old soul type who's into Emily Dickinson. He also has a crush on our girl, Buffy. And what I like so much about this show and what it does so well is that it mixes those like supernatural experiences, the cool fighting elements with like real world high school growing up experiences. So it's like, yes, you have the supernatural things that could probably never happen, vampires and demons and slayers, but then you have Buffy super crushing on Owen, and it's so sweet. Like, this is her first time really seeing Buffy have a crush, and she's like super giddy. In her everyday life, she has so much strength and confidence, but here we're reminded that she's just a 16-year-old girl. I love how she bumbles and bambles around him. She's just a normal girl. One thing I really haven't touched on yet in this podcast is Buffy's fashion in this first season, and it is so iconic. Because to me, I was watching this episode, and it really just feels like a vintage homage, and I don't know how else to really explain it other than that. It feels very like 1950s, even though it's not, because it's like short hemlines and it's very like 90s, and I think it's like even a 70s little bit of a throwback, but just in general, like Sarah Michelle Gellar's look feels very 60s, 50s, 70s, very vintage. In this episode, to me, she was even looking a little bit like Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched. And I think I don't know, I think that's part of the charm of this first season is it feels kind of like that. Like, it kind of feels like Bewitched and Buffy are in the same timeline. I can't explain it any other way than that. Let me know if you guys feel the same way too. But this first season, I feel like Sarah Michelle Gellar could have played Elizabeth Montgomery in a biopic or something, because she looks so much like her in this episode. And then, of course, Giles interrupts Buffy and Willow's guy talk and tells them that it's the end of the world. And it snaps Buffy out of her haze despite her trepidations, because Giles is reminding her of her duties, but then we get the best transition.
The dark forces are aligning against us, and we have a chance to beat them back. Tonight, we go into battle.
Perhaps I miscalculated.
I'm thinking yes.
I love anytime Giles and Buffy are hanging out in the cemetery and they're just like hanging out. It looks so beautiful to me. I don't know. It feels very Universal Monsters. I don't know how else to explain it any other way. With the juxtaposition of them against the headstones, it's just such a beautiful imagery to me. And one of the episodes I really love is in season 3, Band Candy, where Buffy is studying and Giles is like helping her and the camera is like coming down. It's just such a beautiful shot. But I feel like this one here is kind of the precursor to that, where they're just like hanging on the giant tombstones. And after waiting around, Giles is wrong, or so he thinks so. And then we cut to a scene of an annoying religious zealot on a bus ranting and raving, and it's clear that they're setting it up that he's going to be the anointed one. The Order of Aurelius smash through the van and they kill everyone on board. And every time I say Aurelius, I keep thinking of this pizza place back home in Chicago called Aurelio's, and it just makes me want to have pizza so bad. I live in Washington, D.C. now, but I'm originally from Chicago, and pizza here is so horrible. I don't know how people on the East Coast do it. I know I'm probably going to start an East Coast war here, but in Chicago, we have the best pizza. And I just feel like here I've had the hardest time finding pizza. This entire episode, the Order of Aurelius keeps making me think of Aurelio's, and I want good pizza. But while the pizza hunters are getting the anointed one, Buffy finally reaches the bronze and she sees Cordelia and Owen dancing together. And then the next day, she's venting to Xander, and Owen shows up and he clarifies and asks if they could try again that same night. And now Buffy has a second chance as long as she can get the night off.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
That's great. I see we're still working on that anointed one problem. That'll probably take a few days, right? I mean, that's one obscure prophecy.
Yes, well, there are quite a few interpretations.
So, tonight's looking pretty slow, right? Probably best to relax and regroup. No big disasters coming. That is so good. I will see you tomorrow, then. Bye!
She is the strangest girl.
One of my favorite scenes in this episode is when Buffy is getting ready for her date, and I love that you see the relationship forming and building with Xander and Willow. Like, it just feels really natural. Their chemistry all together is so good, and the outfit they choose is perfection. It's one of my favorite Buffy looks in the entire series. That gold dress, the pink jacket, those brown boots, it's like iconic as fuck. Giles rushes in, and as it turns out, maybe his calculations were correct, and he tries to convince Buffy to call off her date. And we get one of my most favorite scenes in the entire series.
Another date? Don't you ever do anything else?
This is the first date. There's never been a date, okay? This is my maiden voyage. We don't even know if this is anything.
Oh, no, we don't.
And I haven't had a day off for a while.
True.
And a cranky slayer is a careless slayer.
Buffy, maintaining a normal social life as a slayer, it's problematic at best.
This is the 90s, the 1990s in point of fact, and I can do both. Clark Kent has a job. I just want to go on a date.
It's not only funny, but it also shows Buffy's struggle. She just wants to be a normal girl and have some normalcy in her life. And yes, she has the weight of the world on her shoulders, but it's like the people around her tend to forget that she's just a 16-year-old girl. But something so simple as a date could actually be dangerous or harmful in her world, as we'll soon see. And my other favorite moment here is we get my favorite quote ever.
If the apocalypse comes, beat me.
And originally, my podcast was going to be called Beat Me, but then upon doing research, there is already another podcast out there called If the Apocalypse Comes, Beep Me, and I didn't want to have too similar of a name. But it is my favorite quote in the entire Buffyverse, and I don't know why. There are so many other quotes out there that are just as good, but this one, I don't know. I think it was because it was probably the first time that, like, it really hit me and resonated me in the series. Just that quote, like, you know, where she says, you know, I'm 16 years old. Clark Kent had a job. I just want to go on a date. If the apocalypse comes, beep me. But let's talk about this pager and this beeper for a second, because there is this like long-standing thing in the fandom where they talk about the inconsistency, because Buffy is standing there and there's no table. And when she reaches, she grabs the pager. And a lot of people are like, where does she grab the beeper from? There's no table there. She's grabbing it off of a table that doesn't exist. And I watched this a couple of times over and over, this scene, because it was hitting me a little different watching it. I was like, wait a second, I don't think she's grabbing it from a table. I think that she's grabbing it out of Giles's pocket. Like, it looks to me like Buffy is reaching and grabbing the beeper from Giles. So she's like saying like, hey, if it comes, she grabs his pager. Like, she's saying, if it comes, just beat me. I got your pager. You know the number. Like, that type of vibe. Just the way that it looks. Because even later on, when Giles is in the morgue and Xander and Willow have to save him, he's like, she's got the beeping thing. He says like, not her, not anything, like the beeping thing. So I almost wonder if maybe it's something set up that, you know, in case of emergency, that like she needs to be contacted for it. And it was like maybe a plot that never went anywhere, or something that got cut in the cutting room floor, like maybe if it was in a script or something where, I don't know. But I don't think it doesn't look like she's grabbing it off a table. It looks like she's grabbing it off of Giles. This episode also features one of my favorite songs off of the Buffy soundtrack, the Buffy album. It's Strong by Velvet Chain. I had this upside down when we were talking, but it's because the back is upside down and the front is not. See, that was not my fault, guys. But I was obsessed with this album when I was younger. This is my original album that I have had since it was released in 1999. This was released. For you younger generation, this is a CD. Oops. And we put them in CD players. Much like my generation is obsessed with records from my parents' generation, I'm sure your generation is probably going to be obsessed with these. But I absolutely loved this album so much. And I feel like the music in Buffy is just absolutely iconic. Like, I remember I used to put this album on and just like listen to it and think I was just like so fucking cool. And like every song on here just has like such a meaning to me. Like, obviously, we have Nerf Herder with the Buffy theme. We have Guided by Voices, Teenage FBI, and like every time I like think of that song, I always think of like Someone Tell Me Why. Like I don't know, I just love it. Garbage is on here. There's just so much. Like I love it. Like Lucky by Biff Naked, that's in season 4. Kay's Choice, Virgin State of Mind. And shout out to the Lazarus Project. I don't know if you guys have heard their rendition of Virgin State of Mind, their cover, but it was featured in our Buffy doc announcement teaser. Because if you guys don't know, I'm directing a documentary on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and they're composing our music for our documentary. And their version of Virgin State of Mind is it's absolutely epic. I'm obsessed with this album, and I think you can find it on eBay. My husband very kindly bought it for me probably about 5 or 6 years ago, not realizing that like I already had it in my OG collection above, and he got it off of eBay, and I don't think it was like crazy expensive. So I definitely recommend you get it. It's like such a fun gem to have for your collection, especially if you're like a huge Buffy fan. And if you're listening to this podcast, of course you're a Buffy fan. But back to the episode. They are dancing the night away to Velvet Chain at the Bronze, and we get a little insight into how Buffy flirts. We forget that she was the cool girl in LA, and so she's super into Owen. She's very like questioning him and wanting to learn more. That cool girl side of her is coming out in a way that we haven't seen yet in these first few episodes. And it really shows up to me when Cordelia shows up in the scene and interjects. But you know what I absolutely love about this moment with Cordelia and Buffy, where they're kind of a little tit for tat in it? I love how Charisma plays this part. Like, she's not mean to Buffy. It's almost like they're frenemies, because she even winks at Buffy when Buffy like gives it back to her. And for me, what I think it is I think that Cordelia finally feels like she's got like a checkmate. There's somebody finally at Sunnydale for her to compete with, and it makes it fun and interesting. And I think that she likes it. I think that she likes that part of this and likes that part of Buffy. And it makes it more fun for us, especially knowing like eventually they do become friends. But I don't know, just kind of like seeing her like give that wink when like Buffy bites back, it just kind of feels like cool. Cordelia's like, all right, I see you, girl. Buffy's date, however, is going really well for all of 5 minutes. Giles decides to investigate, and he walks right into the order of Aurelius. I'll take a cheese pizza with a side of French fries and a 0 sugar Pepsi. Oh, we're not ordering Aurelius? Okay. Xander, Willow, and Angel interrupt Buffy to warn her, and Cordelia drops kind of a spoiler, an Easter egg, when Angel walks in the room. Did anyone catch that? Where she's like, that boy's gonna need oxygen when I'm done with him. But then like cut to 2 episodes later, we learn he's a vampire and doesn't get oxygen. They all crash in, and it's kind of funny. Like, Angel is super threatened by Owen, and he's like really insecure. Xander is explaining why they need to go to the morgue.
We saw some guys in there before. They seem to be having fun.
And I love when Buffy says,
Bite me.
It's a very fun moment, but it also is a painful reminder of what her life is. Like, she can't even have a break. She can't even have a minute to have a date for herself. Owen surprises Buffy and the Scoobies, and he shows up to the morgue, and we see the continued struggle of Buffy trying to balance her life. Because now that he's there, she has to keep him safe. She can't just send him home out into the darkness. Buffy and Giles look for the Anointed One, but it's Owen, Willow, and Xander who find him. And of course, it's the asshole from earlier, only now he has a god complex and demon vampire powers. He and Buffy go toe-to-toe, and Owen thinks that he's stepping in and saving her, and the uber vamp knocks him out, and this enrages Buffy, and she incinerates him. The self-anointed chosen one is gone. But alas, this was all a red herring and a distraction for our girl, because it's revealed the real Anointed One is a child. And in the end, Owen is now an adrenaline junkie and only sees Buffy as that. And she's realized a few things. She's never going to have a normal life, and she has to be incredibly cautious of the people she brings into it and around her. I've seen this show too many times to count, but I still, at this ending, when Giles comes to her, I cry every single time. Because he sees her, like really sees her, and he sits with Buffy, and he like reveals what it was like when he found out he was going to be a watcher when he was little. And it's the first time in the series that their relationship is starting to shift. Giles is recognizing she needs more than just a watcher. She needs a father. It's such a beautiful moment and one of my favorites in the entire series. And it's why this episode is truly one of my favorites. It's not just about Buffy wanting to date. It's about the tragedy of her entire world around her. It's her destiny. And I think that like anyone who has ever felt othered in their entire life could relate to this episode. And I absolutely love revisiting it on a rewatch. Where does this one stand for you guys in the series? What do we think ever happened to Owen? I know we get a joke later on in season 7. Next week, we are deep diving into an episode that I always skip on every single rewatch. I am not a fan of it, but I will be joined by my friend Charles Swint. We're deep diving The Pack together, and are my thoughts going to change? I don't know. You're going to have to tune in to see. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Make sure that you are liked and subscribed, that your notification bell is on. We are everywhere. We are on Spotify, Apple, the videos on YouTube, and the clips, as always, will be shared on my TikTok. Until next week, this is Bored Now, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast.